Welcome to the 9th of the 9th of September 2023, and the webinar today very much focused on sitting in the shoes of the coach. So beautiful to see some lovely faces on the screen. Fantastic to see you all. Claudia, Carmen, Carol, Rita, Claudia, Julie. Fantastic to see smiles. Karen as well, good morning. And I was actually just thinking as I was letting you into the room, I'm wondering how we can make today a little bit more interactive. So maybe what we can do is I'm going to invite all of you to sort of give comments, maybe now and again, that we get you involved. And especially because today we're looking at this question of how to always sit in the shoes of the coach. And I know for many of my neurolanguage coaches, this is one of the challenges, to always be the coach, not to be the teacher and then the coach and then the teacher and then the coach, and how to really stay in the style of the coaching style all the time. So I'm going to invite all of you to write in the chat box questions. I'm going to pause every now and again and open the microphones so that you can jump in and share, and maybe even share your challenges, or share maybe what your opinions are of, well, how can I be a teacher and a coach? How can I be 1 minute directive and a 1 minute not? And let's open this as a discussion webinar today to make it a little bit more engaging for you, so you're not just sitting there listening to me for an hour. How is everybody?
Fine.
Carol, fantastic. Great to see you. Got your emails. You found them in the end.
Yes, I am really so sorry. It was a bit late last night, and thank you for the whole team.
Yeah.
As I was looking this morning for the link, I suddenly came across it. I'm really sorry. It was my fault. I misclassified 3 emails.
Don't worry. And honestly, we do have sometimes where people sign up for the webinar and the emails mysteriously go either into spam or into bin or no idea.
Right.
So don't worry, if any of you ever have that problem with the link, we're always normally around, so no problems at all. And in the chat box, for everybody that's new and doesn't know me and us as a community, do let us know where you're connecting in from. And thank you so much for being here today. Shall we get going? Let me see if I can share my screen. Now, firstly, I would love to just go into that discussion about coaching or teaching. And also bringing this into, I would love to take this into a very non-judgmental space, because there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's different styles, different approaches, different modus operandi. That's all. And the one thing I do want to say is that each and every one of us, even me, we all come from teaching. So I think it's about honoring where we come from, because we all come from this. Even as learners, we were exposed to our teachers and they were exposed to their teachers, and we go back centuries with teaching. And there's always been different types of teaching, different types of teachers. There's always been those that inspire us and those that kill us. And now we're coming into this space where it's not so much about us, the educator, it's about the learners. And it's about the fact that the learners are different today. And each and every one of us, what we are trying to do is trying to adapt to our learners, however that may be. We're trying everything that we can to reach them, because many of them are unknown to us. I've had people in university staff rooms coming to do my course and saying to me, Rachel, We're in the staff room with our head in our hands because we don't know what to do to reach them. And this is where you can see that we're all in the same boat. Personally, I think worldwide, there is a shift in how we deliver knowledge. And all of us are coming into that intuitive shift because we are adapting to the learners. Now, let's just talk about the learners, because firstly, I do think that, and let me open this for the first discussion. I'd like you to share a little bit what you think about learners. Firstly, may I suggest that the children, this new generation that's coming in, are extremely sensitive. And they really need experiential learning. They don't want to sit and repeat and just follow the teacher in the front. They need to embody it. They are, I don't know, it's distinct. I think children of today are different. Secondly, our brains are different. Because of the technology, kids are born with an iPad in their hand. I wasn't. I think many of you weren't, but these kids are. So right from a young age, they are dealing with technology, games, videos, and that also is changing the way that they're developing the brain. And it also means attention is going to be very jumpy. It's going to be very difficult to get them and keep them there. So we have to find ways to keep them engaged. Thirdly, we have to deal with the fallout of the pandemic. We have to be very honest here. There is a lot of psychological trauma. I've heard of parents, teachers talk about aggression. I've also heard about problems to interact, to communicate, problems to express emotions, because they've had 2 years where they haven't been able to express emotions. And actually, if we're honest, we've all been pushing this pandemic under the carpet somewhere. And if it comes back now in this autumn, I think all of us are going to go, no. So we're dealing with a lot of different things. Plus, we're dealing with ourselves. And we also have gone through financial difficulties, the impact of face-to-face to online training. We've gone through a lot of changes ourselves. So this is where we are today. And this is why we're all looking for different ways to communicate with learners. Let me just open the space then. What about you? Anything to add to those comments about learners? I'm just going to see how I can just allow participants to mute yourselves. There you go. I think you can all hopefully unmute if you want to. Anybody like to add to those comments? And with pleasure, if you want to disagree, agree, whatever you want. It's really just to check if you're all awake on a Saturday morning. Any comments? By the way, let's add to the list issues of motivation. Oh, you can't unmute. Sorry, Carol. Oh, have I done the opposite then? Have I muted you all? Allow participants to unmute. There you go. Carol, now? Oh, it's 6 a.m. for you in Argentina. Claudia, lo siento mucho. Ay, mucho café. Tomando. Carol, yes.
Yes, sorry, maybe we clicked on the mute button at the same time. Yeah, no, I'm very pleased to hear what you're saying. To be quite honest, I'm allergic to teaching. And since I've been coaching from the very beginning with you, as you know, I really do focus on the learner, and I focus on coaching as much as possible.
Yeah, Yeah.
If I see, and it requires, active listening, that it will be beneficial to teach in this classical way, if from the learner, if I understand that from the learner, then no problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's where I keep my focus.
Yeah, fantastic. So there I'm hearing that you're really tuning in. What does my learner want? If they want me to go down this road, I go this way. If they want me to go this way, I go this way. Absolutely. And we are in the era where we are adapting to them, and not them all adapting to us.
Right.
So this is the new era of teaching, training, educating, coaching, whatever we're doing. Definitely. Yeah, Carol, thank you for that. Okay, now let's just come back to maybe that difference of coaching or teaching. What is the difference? Because as I said, and I went to the dictionary, when I did all of my research back in 2011, 2012, one of my first ports of call was the dictionary. And the curious thing, and I said this earlier, the curious thing is when you look at the definitions of training or coaching, you see the word teach. And that is the reason that I came to this real recognition that we all come from teaching, and teaching is within everything that we do. So it's our foundational starting point for all of us. Now, whether you go into training, which is sustained practice, or whether you go into coaching, which is almost like a specialized or an enhanced or maybe even private or more focused and really pushing that learner autonomy, underlying everything that we do is transfer of knowledge. But can we also say it's about stimulating subconscious knowledge? And that's where the coach actually comes in with that provocation, that stimulation. Because remember that 90% of what we learn it subconsciously. 90% is coming in through our subconscious brain. So how do we make conscious the subconscious? And that's the role of the teacher, educator, coach. Firstly, to stimulate what you may know without knowing it. And secondly, where you don't know it, I'm going to come in with transfer of knowledge. And you may all be looking at this beautiful picture of the shepherd, thinking, what on earth is this picture doing here? And it was my humor, because in one of the dictionaries, it actually did say a synonym for a coach is a shepherd. So we may create a new trend called language shepherds, maybe in the future, who knows? Anyway, it was my little sense of humor there. Now, let's come into honesty, because honesty means that teaching versus coaching is very much a dichotomy. I don't care what anybody else says. Teaching and coaching are a dichotomy. And here you can see in the research from 2020, Ellis and Smith put it beautifully. Coaching is non-directive, where the answer is not known and waiting to be discovered, while teaching is directive, with an idea of the path learners are on and the questions that will be asked. So it's almost like we're at two ends of a spectrum. And this is where we are understanding how to balance them out and bring them both into the coaching approach, the coaching style, and all the time, if possible. Now, back in 2017 in my book, and actually this was in a research paper by Dimitris Tsepos, he actually took this table in his research paper in 2015 called Profiling Neurolanguage Coaches Across the World. And in this particular table, I'm going to use a fancy word here. I juxtapose, I don't know where that came from my brain on a Saturday morning at 11 o'clock in the morning. I have juxtaposed coaching and teaching. However, can I say that the teaching side is very extreme? And I've done that on purpose. I did that on purpose when I did this creation, because we need to see the extremes here. And my caveat here is most people who are teachers are already shifting into that left column. There are very, very few in that right column. However, there are still countries and pockets of the earth where the systems are forcing teachers to come into that very conservative teaching approach. Let's be honest, my ladies from France, I think France has a leading position in that right-hand side there, with some horrific stories of teaching in France. And you wouldn't believe it, because France normally, you would think it's one of these modern Western European countries. Nightmares. I was living in France for 2 years. My neighbor's son, in his nursery kindergarten at the age of 6, was being traumatized, bullied by the English teacher. The stories were horrendous. That little kid is going to hate English for the rest of his life, and possibly even school. So, you know, there are parts of the earth where we need to hopefully, and I know all of our French neurolanguage coaches are doing amazing work, all of you, wherever you are. I know that you're really coming in and changing things. Now, if we look at coaching loosely, we're looking for very, very, very active learners who are taking ownership and taking back their autonomy. In a session with a coachee, I should be aiming for 80% them, 20% me. And I always say more of them, less of me. Many of you who've done the course with me, you know the image of Socrates. Socrates used to bite his lip to shut up, to get the other people speaking. That's Socratic discourse, provoking and getting them to bring it out. That's what we're doing. So it's more of them, less of us. And let's bring in my favorite quote from Mr. Doyle, T. Doyle, neuroscientist. The one who does the work is the one who does the learning. That should be our mantra. And there we need them to do it. And we need them to do it much, much more than they've ever done it before, because that way they're going to be learning more effectively and more quickly. We need to tap into their motivation. And I don't just mean, what do you want this for? I mean the vision. What's the vision behind the learning? And we'll look at that a bit later. Yep. Empathy is key, but compassion is even more key. Compassionate conversations, finding out how you can help, what they need to do, pushing them into action. And keeping them engaged. You know, it's not only about us entertaining them, it's about them committing and being engaged. When we are sitting with our coachees, may I suggest there's no need for books? Because we are going to be sitting with that coaching conversation and also with the co-creation of materials together. And that's sitting in the space and doing it. Now, books are fantastic to provoke conversations, to trigger you into something, or books are fantastic for self-study. Now, many of my neurolanguage coaches, you know that we are earning more money. So to just sit there with a book and go through a book, no. My clients in that 1 hour, it's almost like they go through a brain gym. And they come out of those sessions and they go, woof, yes, we did a lot today. That's the sensation that we want them to have. And then the question is, okay, how can you consolidate this with books? What could you look at? What could you do? That's how books should be used. And by the way, I love books. I really do. But when we're there with the coachee, we need to be with that interactive space. Remember, language learning, we need them to produce it. These are different neural networks. Understanding, listening are different neural networks to producing. And this is why many of us, we know we've got so much passive knowledge of language, but we can't speak it. And that's what learners lack. So why not, when they're with us, maximize that time, optimize that time, and get them going in safety. Now, coaching is equal status. This is an interesting one, everybody, because the other day I was speaking, I can't remember where it was now, but we were speaking about teaching, coaching, etc. And this particular person said to me, yes, but I'm the teacher and I have the status in the classroom. Coaching isn't about status. Coaching is really about equality, even if you're with kids. Now, equality doesn't mean that you're not authority. So how can you get that feeling of controlling them, but also helping them to feel that you're there for them? You're not there as a status figure, top down. You're there to say, okay, how can I help? What do you need from me as a coach? And when I need to, then maybe I'm going to ask you, to maybe, could I ask you to stop doing that? Or may we move on from this? Or how about we do something else, everybody? But not coming into that real directive, hardcore status authority figure. More coming into that sports coach figure. I will never forget one of my greatest friends in life years and years ago. He was a football coach. And I've told this story before, but he had the Pied Piper touch. Wherever he went, the kids loved him. They followed him. They wanted to be with him. Whenever he did summer camps, they were sold out in the first 2 days. And I was curious, what on earth is he doing with these kids? And I went and watched one of those summer camps. He never once gave them a directive. He was one of them. Hey guys, how about we do this? Okay, everybody, let's line up. Let's do this now. What do you think if we can do that? How about? And he was really, it was that sort of engaging energy that made them all feel that they were together. And it was brilliant. And the kids loved it. He had them really in the palm of his hand. So again, that's something to think about. And I would say if you're in a school and you've got a group of kids, maybe ask them the question now, this year, how can we work together as a team this year? How about we come together as a squad? Let's imagine we're a language squad or a language football team or whatever you want to be, team. How do you want this team to be called? How are we going to work together? How are we going to make sure that the ones at the back are going to be okay with the ones at the front that know it more? How can you help each other? How can you support each other? What can you do when somebody's not feeling okay? And bring the kids in this way. And you'll find that bonding will also help them to learn because they'll feel safer. You can even talk about things like no judgment, no laughing, and really bringing that respect for each other in that team. Try it, see what happens. And as we said, the style now is going into a non-directive. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. And lots of feedback, lots of acknowledgement, lots of dopamine, praise, recognition. And if you're working with corporate clients, one of the major questions for us and for them, how cost effective are we? How are we proving the impact? How are they noticing the impact of their learning? So those are the real focus points that we're coming into as coaches. And here I want to say, if we really are calling ourselves a coach, then it is about coaching. It is about having that potentially professional training, understanding that coaching just isn't about having a conversation with clients. It's much deeper than that. And may I suggest that when you come into that professional coaching, it is years of practice. Honestly, it's not just a one day to the next I'm a coach. It really is years and years of training and practice. I'm still learning and I'm in my 15th year. And it never stops. It never stops. And I've actually, as a PCC, credentialed coach, I've actually started a new journey with this, and Karen is one of my ladies joining me on this journey. I've started to do ICF mentoring. And I'm mentoring now and will be mentoring for people who want to do the ACC. And there it really is about going deeper and deeper and deeper and analyzing and practicing and understanding what professional coaching is really, really about. So what I'm suggesting is we cannot go into a teaching style 1 minute and a coaching style the next minute. So we can't be dancing, now I'm a teacher, now I'm a coach, now I'm a teacher, now I'm a coach. Because that's going to create confusion for the learner. The learner's going to feel, okay, well, now I'm being directed, I'm being told what to do, and now I'm not. So where do I stand? When can I, as a learner, jump in or not? How accessible is my coach? Because now my coach is a teacher. So it could provoke uncertainty and confusion, and it could also lead to those limbic reactions, because if 1 minute you're a coach and 1 minute you're a teacher, you could be in danger of pushing them into a fight or flight. Now, if you're with kids, can I suggest that there are going to be moments when you might have to be directive? If you really are not getting through to them, or one of them is very disruptive. But I would also give that with a bit of a warning. So may I now go into sort of like a real telling you what to do? Please stop that. So it's almost like you're giving a signpost, and we use a lot of signposting in coaching, because what you're doing is you're forewarning them what is coming. I'd like to share a little story with all of you as well. Must be about 11, 12 years ago. I had a client who was a friend of a friend. And don't you just love those types of clients, because then you feel obliged to take those clients because it's a friend of a friend, recommended. And this particular lady came in with a month to go for her legal English exam. A month. And on top of that, her whole degree rested on the marks of this exam. Now, as you can imagine, the joy of taking on a client like that. We came into the first session and she was very nervous, very fight or flight. I'm never going to do this. I can't do this. Oh my God, I'm never in a month. And really it was that sort of uncertainty and that fight or flight. So we went into, I explained about the brain, I explained about fight or flight, I explained about how can we keep you calm, what strategies can we build in, and then we went into breaking the topic down. Now, it was perfectly doable because she wasn't working, she wasn't doing anything, she was a university student, so she had all day, every day to study for that exam. And in a month, if she studied every day with a plan, with a focus, and got knuckled down to it, it was doable. So in that first session, she calmed down, and literally we created the plan step by step, breaking it down, what to do when she wasn't with me, when she was with me, then what we would do next. And she went away and she was calm. And yes, I'm going to go and do this. 4 days later, she came back in. She'd done nothing. And she was back in her fight or flight. I'm never going to do this. I can't do this. Oh my God. Ah. Back again. So again, we spoke about the brain. We spoke about fight or flight. We spoke about the strategies. We mentioned last time we broke it down and we got your schedule. Let's go. Let's have a look. Maybe we can have a start there again. And in the session, she calmed down and we started again coming through into the work. And she left and she was calm. The week after, she came in again. So bearing in mind now, we had only 3 weeks left. And she was in exactly the same fight or flight. And she had done nothing again. Now, at this point, everybody, I got to that point of saying to her, okay, now, may I say that at this point with you, I'm going to get a little bit directive. Because we did everything last week, and now you have a choice. The choice is either get your head down, get into the schedule, or forget the exam. You choose. From that moment on, she didn't. So what I'm trying to highlight here is there may be a point where you have to go into a much more directive approach. But I would say it's only as a last resort. And you build up that sensitivity to choose with that. And that's where you consciously decide to step into the role of directive. Let's just have a pause and see any comments, questions.
May I again?
With pleasure, Carol.
Yeah, my general feeling is that how do we learn? We learn an awful lot implicitly. Yeah. And whether people are aware of this or not. So when you talked about stimulating this aspect of learning, I think that's really central. And you've confirmed everything that I've always thought and tried to do.
Yeah.
And if necessary, if it can help, be more directive.
Yeah.
If it turns out like that, each learning journey, each brain, each learner is different. So it takes it time and experience. So
that's right. That's right.
Why not be more natural? And there was something you said right at the beginning about on Saturday morning. I don't know. Oh, right. Juxtaposition. Why did that come into my head? Okay. Yes. And I often say to my learners that, in fact, our brains know more, that your brain knows more than you think you knew it, than you thought you knew. Knows more than you. To trust and give confidence to, you know, the way we are trying to coach, and for coachees to acquire this trust in their own brain and to go with the flow. It's amazing what comes out when you have coaching conversations after preparing it for a while.
It is.
They really know more than they think they know.
Absolutely. And this is the proof that subconsciously we intake so much. And this is the quest that we are on, how to stimulate, making that subconscious conscious. And when you have a learner who is calm, happy, really in that space of, okay, relaxed, and potentially in the brain waves that allow them to then have that conductivity of electricity through the brain, that's when they're going to start bringing out naturally subconscious knowledge, and they're going to be using it perfectly. And even they are going to be shocked and say, oh, where did that come from?
Exactly. Once it starts, then they can build on it, because it's a positive experience.
That's right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And just want to say, Simone, you're asking what is pussyfooting? Well, it's a word that is a little bit strange, but it actually means acting in a very cautious way. So acting with caution, warily, and it's almost like you're treading on eggshells a little bit, and you're not sure, am I a coach? Am I a teacher? That's what I mean with that when I say no more pussyfooting around. If you're a coach, you're a coach. You're not, I'm a coach, but I'm a little bit about it. No. And it's understanding what that represents when you say, I'm a coach, and what that entails when you say I'm a coach. So it really is no more pussyfooting around. I do like that word. So, any other questions or comments before we move on?
Hi. Sorry, Meg. Just coining some words. I was just thinking about this motto of learning is all about making connections. And that is, I completely agree with you when you say that everything is in our mind, and then it's just constructing this knowledge and being there to facilitate the task, and allowing our participants and our learners to go through this process on their own, and
yes,
we're there to scaffold their learning process is key. Here in Argentina, when we take the teaching training college, we go through this constructive approach. So we are always there asking and encouraging participation and creating this kind of collaborative leadership. When I shifted from schools to companies, I noticed that sometimes adults get more engaged when they play, when they are allowed to give positive feedback and enjoy, to connect with pleasure. And it's not just something that has to do with their external motivation.
Yeah, Claudia, thank you for that. And can I say, for me, in all the countries that I've visited, all the teachers that I've connected with across the world, in Argentina, you are some of the most intuitively sensitive, emotionally intelligent teachers that I've ever met. Really, I have to say that. And I know that's because a lot of the training that you have, even from the governmental training, you have a lot of focus on emotional intelligence and integrating it into the classroom. So Claudia, yes, I can understand that. Yes, that's something that you really are doing. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I wish all teachers, like some of school teachers especially, were given that opportunity to come into more of this training. But hopefully one day we'll be able to reach more and more teachers with this type of training, definitely. So why use coaching? Well, let's analyze this a little bit more. And, one thing that we are looking for is bringing back the joy to learning. I think learning has, over the past 40 years, gone into that sort of drudgery. And even teachers, a lot of teachers are underpaid, overworked, overstressed, overburdened, and there's no joy. So how do we bring back the joy? How do we bring back the playful creation? As Claudia said, adults like to play as well. And also how to bring in that flowing performance. Now we know from the studies that Montessori kids have more flow state experiences than kids in normal schools. So what's stopping us now from introducing more that way of learning into all schools to get those flow experiences? And here you have that famous quote. I saw that somebody was asking me in the chat box there who the quote was from. It's from Terence Doyle, T. Doyle. And Barbara, thank you for that. You came to the rescue there. And yes, this is the one, it's the mantra, the one who does the work is the one who does the learning. So we want them to take the ownership, take the responsibility. And Sheldon and Kessler were two psychologists in the 1970s, 80s. So this research is old, but they really saw even back then that when students are autonomously self-regulating, they get more achievement of goals than when we're telling them what to do, and also positive outcomes to those goals. So it's demonstrated now. We've been in this for 40 years with this research, and now we're starting to understand how to implement it, and we really are implementing it. More research demonstrating the power of coaching. This particular research, there were two groups of students. And by the way, this is more a life coaching experiment rather than a language coaching. So, but the impact is demonstrated in the effects that it had on the brain. Now, one group of students were given a coaching session where they were pushed into their personal visions. And we're going to call those the positive emotional attractor group. The other group were focused on the negative, on meeting expectations, on churning the problem. We're going to call those the negative emotional attractors. After that coaching session, they were sent questionnaires to ask them, how did that coaching session go for you? And the positives said, well, they felt more trust, more care, more inspiration. The negatives said they felt guilty, obligation, and also that sort of clunkiness of not feeling comfortable. After that, they were then put into the MRI scans. And during the scan, they were shown clips of their coaching sessions that they'd had previously. The positive group, they were actually activating the visual imagination areas, the motivation areas, and the parasympathetic regulation of stress response was kicking in, which means they were relaxed. And they were also coming into that activation of the default mode network, which was that social emotional connection, lighting up. The negatives, however, had a response activating fight or flight and self-consciousness. By the way, this is research from Richard Boyatzis, one of the major pioneers in demonstrating the impact of coaching. So there you see the results. You know, we can really see that when you coach and you push people with compassion and personal vision, you're getting positive emotions and positive response from the brain. When you're getting them to focus on challenges and issues and things that are not being met and churning the problem, you're going to get fight or flight response and self-consciousness feelings kicking in. So coaching with compassion and vision is actually going to help people to be more motivated, to have more the imagination of where they want to go, and more the resilience to tackle problems and really come into new ideas. It brings in that evocation of empowerment. And that's where you have the power of coaching. And this is what we need to bring in to the learning process. In addition, we have recent research, 2021. This is actually, I believe, a Chinese university demonstrating that goal-oriented self-regulation behaviors promote psychological well-being because there is an increase of academic performance. And I think I've said this before in other webinars. I think this research should be the greatest announcement and advertisement for coaching in universities and schools and learning establishments across the world, because they suggest that universities and education practitioners develop relevant training programs, workshops, and interventions to cultivate college students to proactively engage in self-regulation behaviors. So these are my advert for all of my courses nowadays, everybody, because they really are saying that teachers and trainers need to understand how to do this. And finally, just demonstrating the impact of non-directive coaching. This is really beautiful because 2022, Gorka Bartolomé, actually one of our speakers at our conferences over the last couple of years, talks about in his research how non-directive coaching actually enhances creativity. It actually increases the frequency of insights and induces higher levels of creative ideas. What does non-directive coaching mean? It means a lot of permission. It means not telling people what to do. It means not bringing people to what you think they should do, but getting it from them. It means ownership, autonomy of the learners and the coachees. That's what it means. So beautiful research really demonstrating the impact. And coaching can also guarantee psychological safety. Because as a coach, you are constantly promoting psychological safety. You really are. Now, these research papers are old, but they really demonstrate how people go into anxiety when learning mathematics. May I suggest with language learning, it could be even worse. So anxiety means fight or flight response means the prefrontal cortex is shutting down, hippocampus is not fully functioning, and working memory capacity is compromised. They're not going to learn. The second research is actually interesting because even the thought of doing mathematics triggers a pain response in the brain. So imagine people who they know they have to go into a meeting and speak English. Even before they're going into the meeting, their brain is triggering in those pain areas. So we as a coach, we're there to see how we can help them and also how to get them into the different brain states. Brain states are interesting. I don't know if any of you read my post the other day about my flight from Athens on Wednesday, which was a little bit funky, turbulent, you know, when you kind of know that you would prefer to be on earth with your feet on the ground. And it was interesting for me to actually observe my brain states and to control that particular fight or flight that wanted to come out. Now, this is exactly the same with our learners. How can we help them to understand their different brain states? Beta brain waves, prefrontal cortex activity, getting them into logical, analytical thinking, really getting them working from prefrontal cortex. Or how do I get you into a relaxed alpha where actually prefrontal cortex is shutting down? It's not shutting down, but it's kind of sleeping while the rest of the brain comes out to play. And Carol, that's when you're going to get subconscious becoming conscious, because you've got this beautiful flow across the brain because there's no stress, prefrontal cortex is relaxed, and all the other areas of the brain start connecting freely and playing together. Yep. That's the flow state. Flow state is transient, hypofrontality. Frontal lobe is quiet, relaxed. And the rest of the brain is able to connect more. So flow state is, and Rika's here with me today. So Rika, let's do the test.
Miha, yeah.
Yes, well,
yes.
Let me do it and then you can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah.
So Mihaly, Csikszentmihalyi.
Yeah, Mihai.
Mihai.
Csikszentmihalyi.
Csikszentmihalyi.
Mihai, yes. Yes,
Thank you.
it's very difficult to pronounce it L-Y because it's a one sound. Yeah.
Mihai.
Yeah. Mihai.
Mihai.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, but it's
thank
great.
you. So for
Yes,
anybody who wants to
my
learn
pleasure.
Hungarian, Rika is our Hungarian neurolanguage coach.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Yes, one of them. Thank you. Now, the father of flow is Mihai, and he brings out all of the characteristics of the flow. And I have to say, I love number 3. Slowing down, speeding up time. You know, when you're in a task and you just lose time, that's one of the chief indicators that you are in a flow state. So we're trying to get these types of states from our learners. That's what we're trying to do. That's the quest. And as a coach, we're trying to do that all the time. So what is coaching? Well, firstly, I want to say it's an unregulated profession. Anybody can call themselves a coach. However, there are certain bodies, institutions, educational sort of standardizing bodies that are setting the guidelines, ethics, and competences of being a professional coach. And the International Coach Federation is the most recognized worldwide. We are accredited by the ICF. I am a credentialed ICF coach as a PCC, and the programs that we offer carry CCE credits, which can then be put towards ACC or whatever credential you would like to then use if you wanted to go into life coaching as well. But our programs are very much focused on language coaching, which is Neurolanguage, or educational coaching, which is the NeuroHeart educational programs that we have. And the competences of being a coach, well, actually in 2020, they changed, were reduced down from 11 to 8. And these are the core competences. And obviously these are just the titles. And within these, you have the depth of what that means when you are in coaching engagements and coaching conversations. So what are the elements of coaching that we're bringing in? Well, into the learning process, firstly, we're bringing in the structure. Structure means the goal setting, action setting, goal review. Coaching is a very cyclical process, and we're bringing in those cycles into learning. So you're breaking it down more, and you want your learners to feel the success more. So goal setting, how are we going to do it with the activities? Now, after a period of time, let's sit and do the goal review and let's see if you feel the success. And if you do, we're going to set the next goals. And then we're going to set the next goals. So this also falls in line with what we do when we're chunking language down. So in neurolanguage coaching, one of our major focuses is how can we break the language down more? The more you break it down, the more you're going to get them focused into different parts of the language to help them build it up. Instead of giving them everything all at once and leave them to work it out, which is how most of us have learned languages, by the way. Then we're bringing in the spirit of coaching. Now here I could say we've got the figure of the sports coach, the one who is empowering, unleashing potential, that spirit of coaching coming in. Then you've got the impact on the coachee, learner autonomy, self-regulated learning processes. Motivation, commitment should be higher because they feel more in control. And the impact of the coach, well, actually it's about being non-judgmental, independent, neutral, being the soundboard above all, and being the accountability partner. That's a key point in coaching. And it works both ways, by the way. I'm accountable to my coachee is accountable to me. It's a two-way, remember, equality. So those are the elements of coaching that we're bringing into the teaching, learning processes. So how can coaching enhance learning? Well, 3 different ways. Firstly, the way that we communicate changes. Secondly, we've just seen the structure will change. And thirdly, powerful coaching conversations can be used intermittently when you need them in the learning process. So let's go to the communication first. How many of you know this saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me? Actually, they can. Actually, this particular saying, giving it to kids, might not be such a good idea. We all used to say it as kids. I don't know about all of you, but I remember saying it as a kid. However, now from the neuroscience, we know absolutely words can hurt. Thoughts can also create mayhem in the brain. How many of you would say you've got ants running around your brain? Ants are automatic negative thoughts running around our brains all the time. Look at this. An average person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. Of those, 80% are negative and 95% are repetitive. Goodness. How many of you could relate to this? Maybe not to that degree of 80 and 95%, but I think we can all recognize that, you know, we could catch ourselves at any time in the day going into that negative self-talk. And it really does have an impact. Here, possibly. Simona, thank you. You've just given me a thumbs up there. Right. Now, can I just bring out here this beautiful, beautiful adage? Energy flows where attention goes. And no, I'm not going to go into the law of attraction. I'm going to go into how the brain functions. Wherever you place the energy and attention of the brain, that is what is going to be constantly reinforced. Those neural networks are going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, if we've got negative self-talk going through our brain all day without us realizing it, let's say in automatic, that's where your brain is going. That's what your brain is reinforcing. So one of the major missions for us as individuals is to become conscious of our self-talk. But not only that, as teachers, educators, coaches, it's about helping our learners to become conscious of their self-talk as well. And especially in relation to the learning. How can we help them to shift that focus and attention away from the negative thoughts? That's a big question. Now here we have some research, 2009, do words hurt? Yes, negative words can release stress and anxiety-inducing hormones. Number one. And negative words, spoken, heard, or thought, can cause situational stress and contribute to long-term anxiety. Here is where each and every one of us need to be honest and say, how can I manage my brain? And how can I help my learners maybe with this? So definitely, negative words can change the response of the nervous system. Something we need to think about. And more research actually in the book from Newberg and Waldman, words can change the brain. One single word can influence the genes that regulate physical and emotional stress. And the longer we focus on positive words, the more we affect other areas of the brain. Positively, by the way. So something to take away for all of us today, to observe ourselves, observe our brains, observe our thoughts. And coaching is about metacognition. It really is about the way that we communicate. It really is about not bringing out negative words that are going to impact our learner in such a way that they're going to go into a fight or flight. So teacher communication is key. And there you have my favorite picture, which are the fingers on the blackboard. Who can remember the fingernails on the blackboard? How many of you can remember that sound? Yeah. I honestly think when we go into directives and we're telling people what to do, that's a reaction that people are having in their amygdala. It's almost like the amygdala is going to feel that every single time that we are telling them what to do, or we are giving them advice or giving them direction without being asked for it. And let's be honest, children, teenagers, adults, we don't really like to be told what to do. I'm just going to give a little question here and to see again if you're all awake. I think, Coco, I know the answer for you on this one. How many of you, if I say to you, go right, how many of you would then go left? Julie, I love you. Claudia as well, you're laughing. I'm sure Coco would say she'd go left as well. Now, this is really the response as well, that often when you give a directive, the tendency is, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and do my own thing. And this is where we have to modify the way that we communicate. Modifying the way that we communicate means, may I ask you, could we possibly? How about, may we move on to this? What do you think if? And lots of permission. And I know that you're going to get learners that say to you, but you're the teacher, you tell me, why are you asking permission? I've had these questions. And I would gently bounce back to the learner and explain it and say, may I share with you, the reason I'm asking permission is, number one, because it will keep your amygdala calm. And you won't feel like you're being ordered and commanded and told what to do, because I'm respecting, number two, your learner autonomy. And I'm actually opening the door for your learner autonomy. You can say no to me whenever you like. If I say to you, may we look at this? You could say, Rachel, I've had enough of that. My brain can't take that anymore. May we move on to something else? Yes, with pleasure. And thank you for sharing that with me. Now, I know if you've got a classroom of kids, it's not so easy. But you can still go into that very quiet, calm, respectful way, even with kids. And I think you'll notice that they calm down and they don't feel so subconsciously threatened. And you'll notice a totally different dynamic in the group with kids. So try to see how you can change the way that you are communicating with the learners, because that could be the emotional trigger. And coaching is about us being very, very conscious and aware of everything that's coming out of our mouths. We have to be aware of how are we responding and demonstrating that we're listening. How are we asking the questions? How are we going into compassionate conversations? How are we giving feedback? Which words am I using? How am I demonstrating that I'm calm? Because if I'm calm, mirror neurons, they're going to be calm too. So understanding the limbic system, understanding fight or flight is key. Trying to keep them in a reward state is also key. Continuously demonstrating that you're listening to them is also key. Curiosity evoking questions, stimulating them, provoking them is key. And as we've said, acknowledgement, the right words, and being conscious of what we're saying. Metacognition all the way through. Secondly, how coaching can impact learning. Well, changing the structure of the learning we've just said this before. First thing I do want to say about motivation, however, we do need to go beyond this, I need it for. I need it for is not motivation, it's need, necessity. There's no energy in that. There's no excitement. There's no joy in that. Even though they say to you, yes, I'm motivated, I need it for work. Actually, I'm hearing that it's a reason for being here. It's not a motivation, it's a reason. Can I say that linguistically, I do think one of the major problems is the word motivation. Because in many languages, motivation and motive are very similar. El motivo y la motivación. In many of the Latin languages, we have this problem. I don't know if, Carmen, in your language, in any of the other languages, but the Latins definitely. And I think there's a bit of confusion in the brain because motive means reason. What does motivation mean? So may I suggest that we change this now? We don't say motivated learners, we say vision. What's the vision behind this learning? Where do you see yourself once you've got it? What's it going to change? What doors is it going to open for you? Where's it going to take you? How is it going to make your life different once you've got this? And that vision is key. And we have to know how to come into coaching conversations to get that. We've said before as well, we need to go into goal settings. Now, goal setting, I hear many, many teachers say to me, Rachel, we set goals. We already do that. Where's the difference? Well, actually, no. In coaching, we need them to set their goals, not us. It has to come from them. How do you do that? Well, you have to go through a very skilled goal setting. And may I say that in Neurolanguage coaching, a little bit like Coca-Cola, we have our secret way of doing it, where we fully get them to set their own goals. And they do. And that means ownership, autonomy, and they then are ready to embrace working on those goals. We're looking for SMART goals as well. You know, in a coaching process, you need to have SMART goals. All of these ingredients need to be there, all of them. So goals have to be specific. We break it down. Why do we do that? Because then we can measure them. The more specific, the more measurable. Can they be reached? That's the question. Is it realistic, relevant, has to be covered? And in a coaching process, there must be a time period. Must. Because that's what we are focused on. We're walking towards that time period to then sit down and do the goal review. No time period, no party. I think that was George Clooney, wasn't it? With the coffee? No coffee, no party. No George Clooney, no party. No time period, no coaching process at all. And again, it's about breaking it down, which corresponds again to how the brain likes to learn best. Breaking it down, chunking it down. So coaching is adapting the learning to maximizing and optimizing the learning. Once we've got the goals, then we're going to ask them what activities. Actions. Actions in a learning process mean activities. Activities to achieve the goal. Activities to learn this, to optimize the learning. Now, your learners will probably say, I have no idea, you're the teacher, you tell me. And again, you need to bounce it back to them. Yes, I'm the teacher. Yes, I'm the coach. Yes, I'm the one here accompanying in the process. However, what we need to do is find activities that you're going to enjoy and you're going to be able to say, I learn with this. Because if I give you an activity that you hate, you're going to be sitting there, you're not in the right brain state, you don't have the right brain chemistry, and we may as well go home. So we need you to find, and if you don't know it, let's discover the activities that really help you to learn and you enjoy them. And you sit and find out together. Process of elimination. With my coaches, we have a list of all different things that they can do, and the coachee can go through them with pleasure. Let's try it. Let's have instant feedback afterwards. What's working? What's not? Let's create a list of all of those activities that work for you. Finally, coaching can bring out moments where you need to troubleshoot, and you need to go into those very, very powerful conversations. Now, coaching is also about, it's almost like being a master of improvisation. Coaching is very much about sitting in the space and dancing in the moment. And there may be many times when something comes up that I, as a coach, then need to take my learner into that conversation. For example, a bad learning memory may come up. May we explore this a moment? And I need to go into that conversation to see how to get this and get it out of the way. Or an emotional trigger might come up, or a learning difficulty might come up, or a commitment difficulty might come up, or a motivation question might come up. I need to know how to take that moment, bring out that coaching conversation, have that conversation in a very skilled way that it doesn't take a whole session. We're only going to be there 2 or 3 minutes hitting it on the head to then be able to move on. And the more that I do that, the more that I can go into that improvisation at any time, the more you're coming into what we call coaching presence. Now, on the one side, can I just also share with you that when you're in a learning process, as a coach in education, you need to have a structure and you need to have a roadmap. We cannot just blow in the wind every single time we're coming in with a learner. Now, I've heard a lot of language coaches that are creating this sort of way of just sitting with the coach every session and saying, okay, what should we do today? That's not how we operate at all. So neurolanguage coaching is not about blowing in the wind. It really is about, you need to learn this language, you need to learn this topic. Let's go through a first session where we diagnose what needs to happen, where you're going to be scaffolding from, where you need to get to, and then I'm going to go away and create a roadmap with that. So we have a roadmap, a railway track, but at the same time, we are skilled enough to dance and go into that coaching presence when we need it. And here is where we started today's webinar, everybody, with that dichotomy. And here is where we are bridging and balancing that dichotomy. We are structured, but we also let go and we let flow. And we're doing both of them. So types of questions, well, types of powerful conversations, emotional triggers, troubleshooting problems, learning how to learn, all of these types of conversations are going to come in. And we may even use coaching models. You know, you have some beautiful coaching models out there. You may want to do this for a goal setting, the GROW model, which was 1976, Sir John Whitmore et al. Created this model. It was the first coaching model ever. And actually, this was the, I'm going to say, the foundation of the coaching profession. This is where it all started. I have created various models for these little conversations. One of them is the FEW model to address issues, problems or dilemmas. A lot of my coaches know this from the first course. You know it from fact-finding, exploring, way forward, and it's now in that little model. And for educational coaches, it really does work to troubleshoot the classroom. And also we have compassionate conversations to troubleshoot, let's say, sensitive issues. I'm not feeling good about this. I don't know what to do about this. I've always been a problem. I've always been a problem in class, or I've never been able to get this. And then we go into this compassionate model also. And finally, we have, and many of you know this, the PACT PQC, which is to go through grammar. And this is the model where we literally sit in that space as a coach with the grammar topic, and we are non-directive. We're absolutely scaffolding from what they know. We're moving into instant learning because they're instantly doing it when they get new information. And this particular model, I created it back in 2012. Actually, I would say this is the model of all models for any educational transfer of knowledge, because it really does keep the learners calm. And I've even done this, and some of you, one day I'll probably do this with you as well. I've done this with a chemistry topic. And the chemistry was chlorine. It was going into the properties of chlorine and the joys of chlorine. And I used this model to take my learners through learning the chemistry around chlorine. And it was phenomenal. It really was. And I'm convinced that they will never, ever, ever forget that conversation. Never. So it makes the difference how we communicate, definitely. And I think we're all in this together. We're all moving forwards together. We are in a very, I'm going to say, unusual 21st century. I think every day we're looking and thinking, what next? So it's key that we are able to manage self to then be able to help the new generations and the generations that are needing that transition into the learning of languages. You know, we have a lot of 40, 50, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds who missed the boat of language learning before, and now they find themselves in jobs where they definitely need it fast. How can we help them? Because they are also facing a lot of emotional triggers with people that are coming up, the youngsters, the 20, 30-year-olds, the 40-year-olds who have 4, 5 different languages. So there's a lot of need for languages nowadays. There really is. And I would suggest, even with all this, the AI, all the technology that we have, there is a greater need for languages nowadays. And on that social, emotional connection level, there is a greater need for languages. So from my perspective, may I say that once you come into professional coaching training, once the coach, always the coach. It's very difficult to go back. And I think many of you will agree with me, those of you who have started this journey and you're on this journey, it's very difficult to then go back into that directive teaching style and approach. So once a coach, always a coach. And just as we come now to the end, I'm going to open the microphones up again in a minute to ask all of you to share or comment or ask questions. And just to say that we are developing the Neurolanguage coaching on the one side, which is for language experts. And it is one of the only courses worldwide accredited by the ICF, but not only that, where we interweave language expertise and language knowledge into the process itself. So it's not just about the coaching and the neuroscience, it really is about the interwoven connection of all of those. Brain, style of communication, process, and language knowledge. And all of the neurolanguage coaches that are out there are really amazing language experts that come to the course to then change that way of delivering, the style of delivery. And on the other side, we have the NeuroHeart educational coaches which are coming into schools with different topics. So now we have chemistry, maths, all those different types of teachers coming into that approach, which is called the NeuroHeart educational coaching approach. And just as an extract from my first book, 2017, by the way, book 3 will be out in October, so I'm very excited. I've got to sit with it tomorrow with the proofreading and everything, because they came back from the proofreader and now he's given me all his little suggestions. So in October, book 3 will be out, which will be brain-friendly materials. Some of you know it already, but the difference will be that there are going to be model coaching conversations around creating those materials with the client or with the learner. So you're going to have model conversations, and the book is going to be called Language Coaching in Action. So brain-friendly materials using neurolanguage coaching. And definitely, may I say that, you know, it is about being the catalyst, the facilitator, the sounding board. It is about having the structure, but letting go and knowing which, when. It is about being non-directive, non-demonstrative, much more interactive. And let's go back to Socrates. It's about biting our lip and allowing them to have the space. And if you're interested in the course, we are running a new edition in October. We've got actually 3 alternatives. For some of you who are in South America, Central and North America, there is actually an afternoon Europe, which is a morning for you, I believe. And then there are evening and morning courses, which are the normal sort of times that we do. And thank you to those of you who are here today from the coaching community. You are honestly phenomenal. The Neurolanguage coach community, you're an amazing bunch. You are so full of compassion, love, care, helping each other, and definitely looking forward to seeing some of you in our conference next year in Sitges, where we all come together and we raise the roof in Sitges for 3 days. Looking forward to that. The dates for that, 20th, 21st and 22nd of March.